Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Social Situation. I'm your host, the Benefactor. Today I'm going to talk about inefficiency in a capitalist enterprise. I will open your eyes to the mysteries of the inherent flaws within a capitalist organization and explain why CEOs make irrational decisions that would affect the quality of their products. Sit back and get ready to take the red pill into the world of worker exploitation. And now, the social situation of Cyberpunk 2077.
Well, I thank you for your question, but I have to say we're capitalists.
There has been an issue with the way we organize our labor under a capitalist framework. The framework of an employer constantly struggling to maximize the difference between how much their employees work and how much they get paid. A system that focuses its priorities based on the power structure of an authoritarian nature, where one person, or a small minority, control the lives of potentially hundreds of thousands or more. Aside from the inherent contradiction of organizing production and distribution of goods and services in this way, a successful model inevitably leading to the workers not being able to buy what they produce. This way of organizing production also creates class tensions and inefficiencies between the majority who do the work and the minority who are usually disconnected from the everyday work environment and don't actually turn production or create profit themselves. Remember, management is classified as unproductive work.
Hey, Pam, yeah, I forgot what day the interview was and I drove to New York accidentally. Be like 3 hours late.
When you realize that there is a direct link from being overworked to making avoidable mistakes in the production process, it's easy to see how irrational capitalist organized businesses can actually be, sacrificing any long-term stability for maximizing short-term profits. Unfortunately, these practices are widespread due to capitalism's tendency to ensure the conditions of its own existence. It does this by forcing business practitioners to solely focus on profit when starting a business, leading to wealth inequality, redistribution, and eventually monopolization of industry. This is a huge mistake. Businesses don't just exist to generate profit. They exist as staples in our economy that play vital functions. These functions, like transportation for goods and services, need to be prioritized since the economy, and subsequently its citizens, relies heavily on them. As our own government would say, these industries are too big to fail. You can patch them with band-aids all you want, but internal contradictions inevitably lead to instability. Even businesses that don't appear to play any vital function in our economy actually do if you look a little closer. A healthy economy is one in which money is not stagnant or sitting around. A healthy economy is one where money is circulating, being transferred from one person to the next as fast as possible, like the blood pumping through an inorganic body that is supplying oxygen to vital organs, one after the other to keep itself alive. It's just a shame that nobody sees the need to fix the failures of a business before that threshold is crossed. I would recommend addressing contradictions within the business first. By doing so, you are addressing the instability within the enterprise. These mistakes may seem innocent in the video game industry. However, if we shift our focus for a moment and apply this logic to other industries, you can now understand how employers are directly responsible for unnecessarily putting their employees in harm's way, simply by structuring the business as an authoritarian top-down hierarchy, subjecting them to harsh working conditions or unsafe environments, seeing employees as nothing more than numbers on paper or just a means to an end. A warning for future entrepreneurs. Using the dialectic analysis on the situation, which is analyzing the back-and-forth interaction between two opposing forces and observing the created change over time. You can begin to see how treating workers like robots instead of human beings with real-life needs, such as breaks and appropriate amount of leisure time outside of work, will inevitably lead to inefficiencies. As a business owner, cracking the whip is one of the most counterproductive practices you can participate in. We will refer you to Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, or the theory of human motivation as evidence of these ideas. By applying the dialectical analysis, one can see the inherent contradiction between the profit-driven capitalist enterprise and workers' basic human needs. In the context of analyzing the situation of worker exploitation, the dialectical analysis highlights the struggle between the capitalist class seeking profit and the working class seeking better working conditions and treatment. Maslow's hierarchy of needs offers strong scientific evidence as to why employee well-being should be a top priority. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a theory that proposes that human needs can be organized into a hierarchy, with basic physiological and safety needs at the bottom, followed by needs for love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. In the context of the inefficiencies of a capitalist enterprise, overworking employees can be seen as a violation of their basic physiological and safety needs, as well as their needs for balance and personal growth. When employees are overworked, they may experience physical and emotional exhaustion, which can lead to burnout, decreased job satisfaction, and increased turnover. This can ultimately result in decreased productivity, decreased profitability, and decreased overall success of the enterprise. Thus, it is important for capitalist enterprises to consider the needs of their employees and prioritize their well-being in order to achieve long-term success. Let's give a couple of examples before I postulate a couple of solutions. Not long ago, CD Projekt Red was in the headlines due to its major release, Cyberpunk falling short of its delivery concerning the last-gen consoles. I'm sure there are many reasons why this happened, but let's look at the root of the production process and work our conclusions from there. CD Projekt Red had implemented something the gaming industry calls crunch time. This is a period of time where the developer pushes the workers to input an enormous amount of time and labor, often lasting months and sometimes even years.
We're living really long hours.
I had a hard time just talking to people because I was just kind of tired and angry all the time. We pretty much crunched that whole year.
Leading up to the much-anticipated launch of the game, and with extensive pressure from investors, CD Projekt Red implemented a 6-day work week, forcing their employees to push production to their limit. Furthermore, reports from former CD Projekt Red employees show that the crunch periods lasted extremely long, and some employees were close to working 100 hours per week. This level of overwork can lead to numerous consequences, including burnout, which can have detrimental effects on the mental and physical health of employees. Inefficiencies arise when companies try to prioritize profits over employee well-being, causing a direct impact on the quality of their products. Another issue with crunch time is that it can lead to a culture of fear and overwork, with employees motivated by the fear of being left behind or seen as less productive than their colleagues. This culture can lead to a lack of creativity, innovation, and communication, reducing the overall productivity and efficiency of the workforce. Now, let's contrast this with some alternate labor experiments done. Microsoft recently implemented a 4-day workweek experiment in Japan, and their results were interesting but not surprising. Their productivity went up by 40%. Other examples can be given of experiments with 6-hour workdays, rather than 8 hours that yield similar results. I say that it's not surprising because humans are not machines. When you have an employer who is trying to squeeze the employee to maximize the difference between labor input and wage, of course you're going to lose productivity in the process. Doing so, you have not chosen the path of least resistance. To address the issue of overwork and inefficiencies in capitalism, companies need to prioritize the well-being of their employees and shift their focus from short-term profits to long-term sustainability. One potential solution could be to implement a 4-day workweek or a reduced workday, as seen in successful experiments. Additionally, creating a culture that encourages communication, collaboration, and innovation can lead to a more productive and efficient workforce. Ultimately, it is essential for companies to recognize that a healthier and more fulfilled workforce leads to better and more effective products overall. As Frederick Douglass once said, power concedes nothing without demand. In the end, this is a power structure that is essentially strangling itself. When you loosen the noose of capitalism and introduce democracy into the workplace, such as a worker co-op, you obtain more efficiency, quality, and productivity because the workers are personally invested in their place of work. By loosening or eliminating the grip on labor input with progressive labor strategies, you also get the added bonus of a more focused, enthusiastic, and energetic workforce. Workers who are researching the problems and solutions, investing their time into studying up on topics such as business and economics, getting involved in the academics, the theoretical, and the practical, they become an indispensable apparatus of the enterprise in which to maximize efficiency and productivity. These are byproducts of organizing production in this manner, where each worker is also part owner of the business. While Marxism provides a critical theoretical framework for understanding the exploitation of workers in the capitalist system, practical solutions must take into account the unique circumstances and factors within different industries and contexts. Overall, it is essential to recognize that exploitation and economic inequality are systemic issues that require systemic solutions. While individual actions and choices can contribute to these problems, addressing the root causes requires collective efforts and structural change. Marx argued that the wage system, in general, creates a division between productive and unproductive labor, where unproductive labor is not valued or paid fairly. Marxism teaches us that minimum wage laws only address the symptoms of the problem and not the underlying structural inequalities in capitalist society. Instead, he advocated for the abolition of wage labor and a move towards a socialist system where all labor is valued and compensated fairly. Let's look at Paul Cockshot's theory for a moment, a theory proposed in his incredible book, Towards a New Socialism. In his book, he proposes using a socialist economic planning system to replace the market economy. In this system, every worker would be allocated a certain number of non-fungible labor tokens that represent the amount of time they have worked. Each token would have a standardized value based on the average productivity of all workers. These non-fungible labor tokens would allow workers to be compensated fairly based on the amount of work they have performed without the need for wages or salaries. Additionally, the tokens could not be freely exchanged, ensuring that workers are not exploitative of others. This system aims to abolish wage labor by enabling workers to have more control over the means of production and the decision-making process. The planning system would be democratic, with decisions made through a system of councils composed of elected representatives from different industries and communities. While Paul Cockshot's proposed new socialism aims to give workers more control over the means of production and decision-making processes, the concept of self-exploitation is not viewed as a problematic issue within his framework. This is because the primary objective is to eliminate systemic exploitation of one class over the other, rather than addressing individual-level exploitation as we do now. Additionally, workers would have the ability to democratically participate in decision-making processes, including work hours and labor allocation, reducing the pressure to prioritize their labor over their own well-being. Overall, the proposed system seeks to create a more equitable and fair distribution of resources, minimizing the need for individuals to self-exploit. Cockshot's theory proposes a revolutionary economic system that aims to eliminate economic inequality, end wage labor, and create a more just and equitable society. In a Marxist sense, labor exploitation refers to the extraction of surplus value from workers beyond their basic subsistence needs. It occurs when the wages paid to workers are insufficient to cover the costs of their reproduction. Workers are left with limited or no ability to improve their living conditions or accumulate wealth, while capitalists profit from their labor.
The way most corporations work is 4 times a year. They take the profits they've made in the preceding 3 months, and they distribute a portion of them to their shareholders. These distributions are called dividends. So if you own a lot of shares, say because you inherited them from your grandma, or you stole money and bought them on the stock market, there are lots of ways of getting them. But if you have them, 4 times a year, you go to your mailbox in the morning and you get an envelope and you tear it open, and inside is a check for your share of the profits that have been distributed to shareholders. For rich people, this is millions of dollars. They have all that money. What did they do exactly to earn that money? Nothing. Those people are going to tell me they earned? Earned what? Did they ever set foot in the factory? No. Do they have any idea what this company does? No, they don't care. They are simply sitting there collecting. Well, let's now do a little logic. If there are people like shareholders who get a lot of goods and services they didn't help produce, then there must be elsewhere in that system people who produce what they do not get. So that means if we allow that we are saying, some people, your job is to produce a lot more than you get so that these people can get a lot more than they produce. For Marx, he stands up and says, I rest my case. This system sucks.
There are 2 primary ways that capitalists steal from their workers. Absolute labor exploitation occurs when an employee is forced to work mandatory overtime on a fixed salary, allowing the company to take advantage of the capping your pay by demanding more and more. Relative labor exploitation, from a Marxist perspective, involves the intensification of labor and increased productivity without a corresponding increase in compensation. This situation arises when workers are pushed to produce more output in the same amount of time, or to increase their efficiency and skill level. Yet they do not receive additional wages or benefits proportional to their increased productivity. This generates surplus value for the capitalist and widens the gap between the value they extract from labor and the compensation provided to workers. A perfect example of this is in the early stages of computer programming. Writing complex code required significant time and effort. As programmers gained experience and new programming languages were developed, the same tasks became easier and less time-consuming. This allowed programmers to produce more software or accomplish more complex tasks within a given time frame. However, there has been a stagnation regarding not only wages compared to inflation, but also productivity as well. This tells us that with the introduction of computer technology, what used to require a room full of people could now be done by one person with a computer.
You know what he did? He watched me work for 10 minutes and then started to design a simple piece of software that could replace me. Is that even possible? As it turns out, yes.
No. We're throwing out the entire playbook. We're starting from scratch. We're implementing a brand new system.
We're screwed. Are you listening to what he's saying? Retraining, new system, youth. I'm telling you, this kid is the Grim Reaper.
I think I am programmed to be your enemy. I think it is my job to destroy you when it comes to selling paper.
And if they knew how much I was paying for my haircut now, they wouldn't be giving me a noogie. It was $200.
Hey, I just think you should know that one of my salesmen beat your stupid computer. So take that, ass.
All that productivity condensed down into one individual output with absolutely no adjustment to compensation.
What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
No. I don't believe it.
I didn't say it would be easy, Neo. I just said it would be the truth.
Do you see now how companies pulled a fast one on us?
Mr. Bezos, are stolen goods sold on Amazon?
And we wonder why generation after generation it gets harder for individuals to own cars or houses without going into debt. Why more young adults are living with their parents. For over 40 years, we've substituted what should have been increases in wage for overtime and debt. Like a frog unaware of his demise in a pot of heating water. A genocide on the middle class. End-stage capitalism, where the workers can no longer afford to buy the goods and services they are producing. The idea of self-exploitation is a bit controversial. By Marx's definition, exploitation involves taking advantage of someone else's labor for your own benefit without fairly compensating them. Therefore, someone cannot exploit themselves because self-exploitation does not involve taking advantage of someone else's labor. If it's the system that forces us to be exploited against our will or without our acknowledgement, then by rationalizing, you can see this idea of self-exploitation is paradoxical within a capitalist framework. Even in worker cooperatives, worker-owned businesses where the workers are not being exploited internally, they are still involved in external exploitation as consequence of being forced to interact with external capitalist abusers. But this is not self-exploitation by any means. However, it is possible for individuals to engage in behaviors or work practices that harm their own well-being or quality of life, such as working excessively without adequate compensation. Marx did argue that workers under capitalism often internalize the logic of exploitation and participate in their own exploitation by accepting low wages and poor working conditions. He believed that workers often do this because they have no other choice under capitalism and must sell their labor power to survive. Nevertheless, self-exploitation in this sense would not be the same as exploitation in the Marxian sense, because it does not involve the systematic exploitation of workers by capitalists in a capitalist mode of production. By perpetuating unequal power dynamics and controlling resources, systems of top-down authoritarian hierarchies will always ensure the conditions of their own existence, because as these systems expand, those conditions are always going to be considered. Those considerations are only limited by the size and amount of resources at each system's disposal. In other words, the bigger the system, the more it can ensure the conditions of its own existence. Capitalism is by far the most powerful and widespread system that recorded history has ever seen, economic or otherwise. It's no wonder that it hasn't succumbed to its internal contradictions. Every time this house of cards gets ready to fall, the system makes an incremental change to prevent that from happening, essentially gluing the cards together instead of rebuilding the structure out of something more stable. And because the system is so widespread and powerful, those incremental changes are more likely to succeed in avoiding the revolution that comes from destabilizing class conflict. Capitalism produces the contradictions.
We just watched Bernie Sanders' town hall on CEOs versus workers, and I want to give you some startling facts. American Airlines, they say they don't have enough money to pay their workers well, but yet last year they made $1.9 billion of profits. Their CEO, Doug Parker, he got paid $31 million. What happened to you don't have enough money?
Then the tensions.
The union members have prevented people from actually also leaving the plant here.
And then the failed solutions.
From December 2007 to June 2009, the United States suffered an extended economic downturn that came to be known as the Great Recession.
And then the rebels who push for the abolishment of the current system for the next one. This phenomenon has happened throughout history, from slavery to feudalism, and can be tracked as a clear pattern of
predictable irrationality.
Therefore, Marx argued that the only way to truly end exploitation and break this vicious cycle is to abolish capitalism and establish a socialist system in which workers own and control the means of production. The release of Cyberpunk 2077, with its numerous glitches and problems, can be traced directly back to the inefficiencies within the capitalist enterprise. One that prioritizes profits over employee well-being, and that fosters a culture of overwork by placing value on you based on the amount of labor you output. The development process involved the use of crunch periods that forced employees to work long hours, leading to burnout and mental and physical health issues. Such working conditions lead to a reduction in creativity, communication, and innovation, resulting in inefficiencies that culminate in subpar product releases. To address these issues, alternative labor policies, such as a 4-day workweek or 6-hour workdays, can be implemented. Microsoft's pilot project in Japan, which involved a 4-day workweek test, resulted in increased employee productivity by 40%, demonstrating the benefits of reduced working hours. Worker cooperatives also offer a potential solution, since democratic decision-making ensures that employees' well-being and interests remain as one of the enterprise's top priorities, leading to a highly productive and efficient workforce. Like any physical structure, a business that reinforces the base of its labor will find stability in the organization as a whole. Therefore, to ensure long-term sustainability, companies should prioritize employee well-being by fostering a culture that encourages creativity, collaboration, communication, innovation, and work-life balance. This approach will undoubtedly lead to the development of better quality products without compromising the health, safety, and well-being of employees. How do you feel about some of these alternative labor arrangements? Do you feel there are any additional ways we can increase productivity and help the workers? Embrace the forbidden and liberate your mind. Join our brand new forum and website where we delve into controversial topics from zero-point energy to anti-gravitics and plasmoid technology. With a Marxian analysis, I weave these suppressed secrets into the bigger picture, empowering you to break free from society's chains of suppression. Explore the depths of forbidden knowledge and unlock the true potential of your consciousness. Dare to challenge the limits of conventional wisdom here on Beneficence TV.